Hey everyone, thank you for joining us. I am the second part of your marketing presentation today. Thanks very much for the social media just a second ago. That was really, really interesting. I mean, I was watching quite intently and it actually feeds in a lot to what I'm going to talk about today for you all. This is going to be probably the world's shortest video presentation and probably the only video presentation you'll ever see that doesn't actually have any video in it because we are so short on time. So I'm going to rattle through it at a pace. And then if anybody wants to pick up with me on any questions afterwards, you absolutely can. You can drop me a line, you can LinkedIn me, you can do all that good stuff. Right, so let's get into it. First things first, I know you can't answer me, so I'm going to ask you this question and then I'm going to answer it rhetorically for you. Are we right to be prioritizing video as a content stream? Now, I hear this an awful lot. A lot of people will say, video, it's all about video. You've got to use video. Video is the only thing I use. Now, I've worked in video for the vast majority of my career and I love it. It's a great way to communicate with your customers. It's a fantastic way to tell a story, but it's not the be all and end all to your marketing strategy. It's exactly that. It is a great way to tell a story. It's a great way to communicate with your customers, but it only at the right times. It's not going to be useful all the time for you. It's not going to make all of the difference all of the time. So use it, but use it when it's appropriate, just for the sake of it. Again, I know you can't answer me this, so I want you to try and have a stab at it at home. I'm going to give you about 10 seconds to do so. 60 seconds of video is the equivalent of blank number of words. Now, that blank number of words, try and think about what it would take to intake the amount of information that you would do in 60 seconds of watching video as to the equivalent to having read, the equivalent number of words you'd have to read for watching 60 seconds worth of video. Right, now this is an official study. I'm not making this up. I'm not sticking my finger in the air. The answer is 1.8 million words. Now that might seem unbelievable, but I will caveat it. This is 60 seconds of good video, not 60 seconds of pants video, because 60 seconds of pants video could be 10 words. If it's 60 seconds of good video content that takes full advantage of color, sound, emotion, all that good stuff you see in well-made video production, you can communicate the equivalent of 1.8 million words worth of information in 60 seconds of video. So it really is something worth focusing on if you're a business that likes to communicate with their clients through storytelling. More stats for you. It is actually science. I'm not making it up. I would love to say that I am the creator of these stats and doing all these lovely studies. I am not. I've obviously been able to pull them out from various other sources over the years, but this one is one of my favorites. The human brain processes visual imagery 60,000 times faster than text. Okay, so there is a really good place for great copy and great content, and Hugh will talk about that shortly. But if you are trying to communicate a lot of things in a short period of time, trust me, video is a very, very good way to go. You are playing to the advantages of your audience because 90% of all information transmitted to the human brain is visual. If you need to think of an example, imagine a paragraph of text and how long it would take to describe a tropical beach. Okay, imagine you've got 120 words there. That would take you roughly sort of 25 seconds to read that amount of text. Then picture an image, or even better, a video of said tropical beach. You can intake information in a split second. In that split second, you've already created an image of it in your brain, you've taken in information from across the entire scene, and you've started to process it. If you have to read it, it's a different story. More stats. Sorry, I'll get off the stats in a minute, I promise. Social video generates 1,200% more shares than text and images combined. Okay, there's a couple of reasons for this, and they're twofold. The first one is that social media channels recognize that users love video content, and we do, for all the reasons we've just talked about. Humans love video content in all the right places for all the right reasons, obviously. So they engineer their algorithms to show people more video content. So if I were to put a post on social media and it said, it was 100 words all about my business, how great that business was, and it was just text, and then I put out the equivalent of that as a video, that video will outperform the text, just based purely on most social media channels' preference for video within their own algorithms. So video shouldn't use video for everything, but it's important to recognize that social media channels do prioritize video above an awful lot of other content in what they show to your audience. Not everything, but a lot of stuff. And again, the caveat is always good video content. If you're making lots of bad video content, you'll get knocked down that algorithm. But if you're making lots of good stuff, you will inevitably go up the algorithm. I promise you that. The second reason is really that, it does promote sharing. Humans love to be storytellers as well as listeners. What we like to do is see something that's enjoyable and share it with our friends. That's how we like to live as humans. We all want to be the bringers of information, and we all want to be the people who told that really interesting story or shared that great piece of content. We love to look insightful. We love to look knowledgeable. So if you can be the provider of that content and give people a reason to share it, and we'll talk about this again in a little while, that's a really good win on social media. Nerd one for you. I promise you, we're getting to the end of the stats. Companies using video enjoy 41% more web traffic from search than non-users. Okay. In plain and simple terms, YouTube is the world's second biggest search engine after only Google. It's purely video results. So if you don't have any video content hosted on YouTube, i.e. the world's second biggest search engine, you're missing out on all of the potential search traffic on the world's second biggest search engine. So even if you aren't making daily social content, you, at the very least, as a brand who is operating digitally, need to have content hosted on YouTube, be it a brand video, case studies, something that is indicative of your business. If you're hosting anything on your website, then you need to also be having video content on YouTube that's also embedded on your website. It's a massive tick in the SEO box for Google if you have a YouTube channel that's linked to your website and that you have content embedded from your YouTube channel onto your website. Big tick in the SEO box from Google. And inevitably, it's going to push you further up the rankings the more useful that content is for users on your website. Again, caveat, it has to be good. Can't be terrible. If it's bad, it will have the opposite effect. 90% of users find product videos helpful in a purchasing decision. Now, you may well have seen in recent years that big online retailers like Amazon, ASOS, people who are dealing in massive e-commerce quantity and volume have started adding in video to their image carousels. So whereas it used to be image when you come to a product, it's now image, video. And that video could be a review, could be a how-to, it could just be a catwalk model strutting up and down. But all it does is it gives people further insight and confidence into that product. So if you've got something, if you're selling products, if that's what you're working in, making video about that product, reviews, how-tos, that sort of thing is only going to enhance and enable people to be able to make decisions about purchasing easier. Okay, we finally moved past stats and you're going to get some actual advice. So 5 golden nuggets for you. The first one, focus on the story. All right. People don't have to watch your content. This is not like television. So they're not sat down in a captive, they're not a captive audience, not sat down in their living room. It's an ad break and you are serving them their content. They have to watch it before they can get to the next half of Coronation Street. They have to make a choice to watch your content. So you have to make that content interesting. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is if you focus on a story, because we've already talked about the power of storytelling and how people just gravitate towards it. If I can remember a stat off my head, it's not in here, but 5% of people can recall statistical information. 63% of people can recall a story. So if you want your message to be memorable, tell a story. Oh, let's get my next point up. There we go. Make it memorable. Okay, now that's harking back to the first point. It's not memorable. It's not really worth making because you want somebody to remember having your content and then be able to take an action off the back of it. Not everything you make will go viral, okay? And you don't need it to. Virality is not necessarily a sign of success. Okay, everyone says, if anyone ever contacts you and says, I can make you a viral video, delete their email, put it in the junk, or if they've come directly to your door, shut it in their face, because you can't make a viral video. All you can do is make your video great. You can make it funny, you can make it emotive, you can make it entertaining, but you can't make it go viral. The audience determines whether it goes viral, and virality isn't necessarily a measure of success, as I just mentioned. If you've got 10 million views on a video, but 0 people contact you as a result of having watched it, it's beautifully useless. Okay, so don't use virality as a measurement for success. Be careful where you put it. It's a good lesson for life and a good lesson for video content on the whole. Platform matters. You know, if you're going to put something on Facebook or any social media channel, tip number 1, if you remember probably only one thing from today, please remember this. If you put video on social media, make sure people can watch it without sound. Make sure they can enjoy it, read along with subtitles at the bottom, or that it doesn't mean they have to turn the sound on, because 85% of people will turn the sound on social media. Okay, so make sure platform is important. It really, really is. And there's lots of other things we could discuss about that, but we'll leave it at that for now. And don't be limited by budget. Okay, I know some of the best possible films that have been created on a budget. I really do. And it's really about the idea and how cleverly that they've gone about actually creating that content. This can be true of all of your social media content, stuff you're creating on a regular daily basis. This doesn't need to be expensive. It just needs to be relatable to the audience and tell the story and get your message across. Not everything has to bring in a production company. I would save those events for when you need a brand video or case studies, or something that really does need to look a bit more polished and maybe have a producer involved in it. If you're creating content on a daily basis, on the regular, don't be limited by budget. We've all grown. Most phones now are really capable, and I will happily wax lyrical to anyone if they want to talk about equipment for mobile filmmaking and how that can be beneficial to your business. Who are the big hitters in video? We'll whiz through this. YouTube, we've already talked about. And the second is Facebook. You've also got some, very, very fast rises on the horizon. Instagram is catching up. TikTok is catching up at a really alarming rate. It is very, very quick. If you're not using TikTok, it's probably something to really consider in the future. A niche audience and a different way of communicating, but definitely worth it. But if you're not doing video yet, these are the 2 I'd urge you to focus on for the time being. If you're just getting started, YouTube first, because it's the world's second biggest search engine. Facebook, because it's the world's biggest social media channel. It's just worth it. We've already talked about the difference between the 2. YouTube's a search engine. Facebook, a channel. So, videos on social media must be shareable. We've talked about this. If content on social media is enjoyable, shareable, tells a story and relates to the audience, it's going to be successful for you, because people will want to make it stretch further. It's going to have a good shelf life. If it's boring on social media, people won't watch it. They've got no reason to. What we're aiming for on social media is the wankiest of all term, apologies for my thumb-stopping content, stuff that stops people from scrolling. It grabs them, makes them watch and engages them, and then makes them share. Video on YouTube must be searchable and shareable whenever possible. We've talked about it being a search engine. If you're uploading content to YouTube, make sure all your metadata is there. Make sure your title is good. Make sure your description is full, and make sure you've got all of your tags in your video when you upload it. If somebody goes to YouTube to look for stuff, which is what they do, then you are effectively going to miss that opportunity if your video is not labeled properly. And then you have to try and make it shareable and good, or as shareable and good as you possibly can, so that they do want to enjoy it, they do want to share it, they do want to engage with it and like it. So here's a slightly magic-ish formula for you for creating your video content. Now, there are lots of other ways to do this. People do this in various different stages. This is just the way that I typically like to do it. So the first stage you need to be considering is, what are you trying to achieve? What is it you'd like to do? In any marketing campaign, that's how you'd first start. with your campaign goal. Your second audience, who are you trying to target to? Who are your target audience? I'm aware they all say one. They're all equally as important as each other. They're not all meant to say one. That's a mistake. But yeah, this is the thing to consider. Distribution platform. Where are you going to put your content? Where's it going to live? Where is it going to have its shelf life? Because that will have a real effect on what your message is going to be as your next stage. But more than anything, content and creative, because if something is living on Instagram versus living on TikTok, then your content and creative will probably be very, very different. Even more so if it's on Facebook versus Snapchat or something like that. It really does depend on your audience, platform they're using, and how it needs to look. And again, we could talk about that for hours on end. We really, but we can't, because I've already gone over my timer and someone's just sent me a message saying wrap up, please. So I'm going to be really fast on the next bit. If I can get to the next page. Here we go. And this is the last talk about being emotive. Okay. The worst thing you can do in or any video, in fact, is for somebody to be apathetic to that content and to not have any reaction to it. The best ads are the ones that made us feel something, the ones that made us react and have an emotional response. The worst ads, you don't remember them because they didn't give you an emotional response to anything. These are the 4 strongest emotions. And these are videos. I do not have time to play them, so I won't play them for you. Sadness, anger, and shock. Now, if you can get these into the content that you're putting, then you're onto an immediate winner, because you're immediately able to tap into an emotional response to the viewer. There's loads of different other emotions you can go. These are just the strongest ones. Be careful if you're going for anger or sadness, because you don't want to necessarily be a monger of those things. You need to be able to attach your brand to them and then present yourself as a solution. It's a bit of a tricky balancing act. It's something that if you were going to engage a company about, they can help you with. Sometimes that really is worth doing, because you can access a producer, you can access someone who is going to make a real difference on that project for you. But the key message to that is be emotive and make sure you are tapping into the audience's emotional responses to stuff. We don't actually have any time for any questions, but I'd just like to say thank you for having me on here. I hope it's been useful for you. As I said, it's a whistle-stop tour. Apologies for the information dump. And if anyone wants to pick visually, you can just reach out to me on LinkedIn, drop me a message, and we can connect on there, and I'll do my best to answer any questions for you. Thanks, everyone.